This audio lecture is for the course INST 222, Foundations of Education in a Multicultural Society. Today we're going to review the 4 major misconceptions or myths about multicultural education. The 4 misconceptions about multiculturalism are listed on the left of your screen, number 1 through 4. We'll take a look at each one individually. But let's begin with a quote by our author of this chapter, by Koppelman. And on page 304, he says, "The American identity is being reshaped as groups on the margins of society begin to participate in the mainstream and to demand that their visions be reflected in a transformed America." So what this quote is really saying to us is that as the diversity in the U.S. becomes a part of our mainstay, folks who occupy these different spaces want to know that their histories and their identities matter. And that's what multicultural education is about, to ensure that we include the voices of all the great people in our wonderful country and see that their voices and their identity and their visions are reflected in our curricula. So misconception number 1, and the first myth about multicultural education, is that it is for other people. It's not for white people. It's not for our white brothers and sisters, but that it's only for people of color or persons with disabilities or persons who occupy the other. If you go to pages 301 to 302, our author Koppelman says that the claim that multicultural education is only for people of color and the disenfranchised is one of the most pernicious and damaging misconceptions. He goes on to say that teachers who teach in predominantly white schools and districts state that they don't have a program or plan for multicultural education because they have few African Americans, Latino, or Asian American learners. And so this is a misconception that I hear time and time again. And we fail to really drive home the point that this idea of multicultural education is not about having a program for our kids who are a little different from a white mainstream society, but it's for our white learners as well, because so often the ideas and stereotypes and the problems that we see occurring when it comes to relationships inside classrooms is because people don't know each other. It's because we haven't done the job of educating our white brothers and sisters, along with our kids of color, about the contributions of all kinds of Americans in this country. So stereotypes and low expectations continue on this dangerous cycle. And so one of the ways we can break that, this idea of this divide that happens around America, is that we take the time to educate all Americans about all types of people in our country. So therefore, multicultural education is not just for others, but it's for everyone. Diversity means all, not some, not other, but all. Misconception number 2, multicultural education is opposed to Western tradition. And we hear this a lot, that, those who aspire to talk about the history and contributions of our Native Americans, for example, or Asian Americans or persons with disabilities, they do so at the same time of disrespecting Western tradition. It's the idea that we want to throw out all the great things that our forefathers and foremothers have done, and that's quite not true. Multicultural education is not anti-West. It grew out of a civil rights movement grounded in such Western democratic ideals as freedom, justice, and equality. Multicultural education seeks to extend to all people the ideals that were meant for an elite few at the nation's birth. And we have to remember, when our wonderful country was, decided and planned, it was meant for wealthy white men. It never was meant to have women at the table or persons with disabilities. So multicultural education is saying, wait a minute, let's acknowledge all of the great things that our forefathers and foremothers have done, but let's not forget that all kinds of Americans have contributed to the great successes of our nation, and all kinds of Americans have built this great country. So we don't want to throw out any of our Western ideas and accomplishments and achievements. That would be foolish. We want to add to the curriculum and make it richer. And also, what is really key to understand is that multicultural education is built on these great, American democratic Western values of freedom, justice, and equality. And they go hand in hand. They do not conflict, but that these ideals actually mirror each other. Let's move on. Misconception number 3, multicultural education will divide the nation. I hear this so often that by focusing on specific groups that we tend to, leave out other groups. And it really is buying into this idea that we are really a united nation. But we all know when we speak privately to each other, we know that there's this resentment that is harbored among different ethnic and cultural groups and between different groups. On the right side of your screen is a set of data from the Pew Research Center, and the question was asked about how much progress toward, MLK's dream of racial equality do you think the U.S. has made over the last 50 years? And you can see that the respondents are white, black, Hispanic, and we see that there is some closeness in how they're responding to whether or not we've made some progress. And overwhelmingly, all of these ethnic groups, it's less than 50%, and for blacks, it's around 30%. We don't feel as a nation we're making progress. So to say otherwise is not really true or reflective of how we as Americans really feel when it comes to this idea of the American dream. Our author tells us that multicultural education is designed to help a deeply divided nation rather than to divide a highly cohesive one. Multiculturalists view e pluribus unum, out of one many, as an appropriate national goal, but they believe that the union must be negotiated, discussed, and restructured to reflect the nation's ethnic and cultural diversity. So even though we say, and we have a lot of great rhetoric that we are a very cohesive nation, there does exist among and between the different ethnic groups this real feeling that we are not as bonded as we purport to the world. And so these issues have to be addressed, and to hide them and sort of sweep them under the rug does us all a disservice. So what we have to do is what multicultural education attempts to do: have real conversations about difference, and to restructure curriculum so that it reflects every type of cultural group as much as can be done in our wonderful country. The fourth misconception is that multicultural education has made progress. And so this is sort of a sticky wicket. There's this myth out there that we are a post-racial America, and time and time again I hear people say, well, don't we have a black president now? Isn't this race stuff over? And quite the contrary. Those of us who have really been involved in some intense conversations realize that there still exists this divide. So while we still have people who have made great progress in our country who are from these marginalized groups, we still have a lot of progress that needs to be made when it comes to changing curricula in our schools and colleges. Take for example the mandate by the National Council for the Accreditation of Teacher Education. One of the reasons that we have a mandatory multicultural course in teacher preparation is because we have new policy that says so, that we have to have this one course. But what we don't have is the implementation of these, cultural ideas about diversity into the entire, teacher preparation program. And that is really the goal of multicultural education, that we don't get these discrete pockets of one course here and there, but that the whole entire curricula and entire programs reflect this idea of diversity. So whether you're in an engineering program or a science program or a teacher preparation program, we hear these ideas reflected in all the courses in all of our programs, and that really has to be the goal. So even though we've made progress, of course, here and there, and discussions and recognition about issues of diversity, we really have a long way to go when it comes to realizing the true American dream for everyone. E pluribus unum continues to be elusive. So I want to end with one of the quotes made by our author on page 304, and he says, the major goal of multicultural education is to restructure schools so that all students acquire the knowledge, attitudes, and skills needed to function in an ethnically and racially diverse nation and the world. Our country and our planet is becoming increasingly diverse, and having the skills and knowledge and attitudes to interact with all kinds of people has to be the goal of every sane individual on our beautiful planet. So thank you for your time, and Gigam.